Corelink Solution family, we've got a treat for you today. We're going to talk with someone who is leading something I know is near and dear to all of us, but may not be as obvious sometimes, that need. Foster care and adoption were not always a part of the dreams for her life, but God changed her heart when he made her aware, and she is passionate about helping others become aware too. Jami Kaeb is the founder and executive director of the Forgotten Initiative, a Christ-centered nonprofit ministry helping churches support foster care agencies through awareness, encouragement, and advocacy. Jami, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Hey, I always like to get the audience warmed up with a little bit about the person.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what is one thing that you might be able to share that even those closest to you don't know?
Oh, here's the funny thing is if I am excited about something,
Uh-huh.
I share it with everybody. And so I don't
Gotcha.
know that there's many things that nobody knows.
Gotcha.
I'm what you call a galvanizer. And so if I love it, I'm going to share it.
You're going to share it.
I remember being at a board meeting with my husband's work, and I loved this particular sandwich at Panera. By the end of the board meeting, I had everybody ordering that sandwich. Yeah.
Like it or not, I have to taste this sandwich.
The ideas in here don't usually stay inside. I got to share it. So
that's great. That is great. Well, listen, I am very well, I shouldn't say very knowledgeable, but I've had my own journey with foster care. My parents were huge proponents. At one time, I think I had 3 or 4 foster brothers and sisters in the house. Some stayed through longer terms than others, but I think a part of that, watching them give that way, and in other ways, my dad was a minister, etc. My mom was the one sitting up conducting service, right? I mean, so I've just watched them be in service, and I think that can't help but have an impact on you as you grow up. And so I believe I get it, but I know you're going to help us really get it. So maybe just start with what led to the creation of the Forgotten Initiative.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I didn't get it when I was young. I did not grow up seeing this.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember when we first got married, and we were very young. We got married. I was only 19. My husband was 21. I even had a friend who asked, "Would you ever consider adoption?" And I remember saying to her, "Well, only if I couldn't have children." So this was kind of the idea that I had in my head, as adoption's like the second sort of idea if your first idea doesn't work. And
yes.
And God had to do a work in my heart, and he did, to really change my heart. He started to make us aware. And over time, that awareness turned into some curiosity. So we started to see some friends bring home children from other countries that they were adopting. We got to be a part of helping provide some funding to help children come home. So that curiosity started to spark in us a little bit of like, maybe we should consider this. And so eventually we started to pray, like, Lord, is this something that you're asking us to consider? And by this time, we had 2 biological daughters. And as we started to pray, God just really, I just remember it almost felt like an overnight, and I know it wasn't. It was little by little by little, but he changed our hearts, and we were ready and we were available. And so we adopted our first son. He was born in Guatemala. He was 10 months old when he came home. He's 17 today. And really, by adopting him and understanding the heart of God for children, and seeing the way he changed us and drew us closer to God, man, we caught the bug and we were ready to do it again. And so we tried to adopt we wanted to adopt from Guatemala, but at that time, Guatemala had closed to any international adoptions. And so that wasn't an option. So we tried to adopt from the United States. And this time we thought maybe we could adopt a baby. In the United States, birth moms who are wanting to give their children in adoption, will review like pictures and stories of the prospective adoptive families, and they get to choose. And it's a beautiful thing. And so for us, we made the book and we made the stories, told the stories, and we sent it out to different birth moms through our agency, and nobody chose us. And it was very unexpected for me and very challenging. He took us on about a 2-year journey of hearing no after no after no. And it was painful. I didn't understand it. I questioned God, saying, okay, God, you've called us to this. We know that this is something that is close to your heart. And now you're saying no to us? Like, I don't get it. And I just felt like God, over the course of that time, a couple things showed me. One, first of all, Jamie, it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you. Second, he taught me that he is my first. He is my everything. I remember when we first heard like a disappointment early on in the journey, and I called my husband and I said, Clint, come home. I need you. I
Mm,
need you.
mm, mm.
And he did, because he's a good husband. But several months later, we had another disappointment, and I was really struggling. And my husband said, do you need me? And that point, I said, I think I need to be with God. And it was in that moment that I remember falling back on the bed and I just cried out to God. And
Mm.
I felt him say to me, Jamie, think back when you first needed your husband. Now I'm the one you're calling on first.
Wow.
And so God just did a number of things like that in my heart during the season of waiting. He also then opened my husband and my eyes to foster care. So
Yeah.
we're like, okay, so if there's not a need for us, to adopt a baby for some reason, like
Yes.
then maybe God's pointing us to something else. And he really changed our perspective. And it was like he said, Jamie, it's not about bringing a child into your family so much as it's about bringing your family to a child.
Mm, mm.
And that was this flip flop in my head of, oh, maybe we can be a family for a child for however long they need.
Yeah. Did
And
you,
that's,
did you,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, please.
Well, I was just going to say that is when God really opened our eyes to foster care.
Yeah.
And it was through that journey that I first became aware of foster care agencies and children and what happens there. So I
Right.
can go into that, which will lead us to TFI, but you had a question.
So Jamie, again, that was a remarkable journey you shared. And I guess I've got two questions, right? One is on the front end. Did you ever ask yourself, like, God, why me? Why us? Why Clinton and I?
Mm. I don't know if I asked that question so much. I think because it was such a journey of like just God opening our eyes slowly, that by the time we were interested in adoption, by the time we were ready, we were really excited. So it was
Okay.
more like a thank you.
Got it.
Thank you, Lord, that you allowed us this privilege.
So then on the other end of it, after, you commit, I'm down, we're going to make space. I think I have some sense of what to do, the difficulties in,
Hmm.
adopting.
Yes, that
Well,
I definitely asked why.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and I think that was such a lesson for me in learning that you don't one, it isn't about you, like I
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
And just because God calls you to something and you think that this is the direction he's calling you to, we only see a very small picture.
Amen.
And so we don't know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that I don't think we did anything wrong by pursuing that, even though that wasn't the answer, but he used that journey to get us to where we are today.
Yeah.
And so just learning to trust him and his sovereignty has
Yeah.
been such a journey.
What do you think prepared you for the journey when you look back? Because oftentimes I think we have gifts and talents, right, that are
Hmm.
often unnurtured or,
Yeah.
for lack of better terms, don't get excavated, right? And then later on down, you go, oh, I can see where
Mm.
God was preparing me for this. Did you have that moment or not really?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God has always given me a love for people, for
Mm,
children. Um, and so, I mean, that made sense. Like now, I just think of myself like now we have 7 children since
7
that day,
children. Wow.
plus a son-in-law. Our
Yep.
oldest got married last year, and
Nice.
I get to be mom to many in my own immediate family, but also mom to a lot of my kids' friends. And
Yeah.
I just, God has given me a nurturing heart. And
Yeah.
so I love people. I love encouraging people. And so I don't know if I had a moment where I'm like, I was made for this
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, because we all know like stepping into life with people of any kind
Yeah.
is hard.
Yes.
And it takes us to the end of ourselves, and I recognize my limits so much more than I ever used to.
Yeah.
But I'm just so grateful.
That's good. When you think about the forgotten initiative, and I know this is such a difficult question because I think when you're doing heart work, um, I think there's the yin and yang of
Hmm.
what the goal looks like versus
Yeah.
being immersed in the work. But to the
Mhm.
extent that you can, what is the forgotten initiative's overarching goal?
Yeah. Well, if you think of kind of like our theory of change,
Mm-hmm.
it goes like this. We believe that well-supported foster care workers,
Mm-hmm.
and we're specifically thinking of caseworkers, will more effectively serve children.
Okay.
So there is this foster care community. We have birth parents, we have foster kids in foster care, we have foster parents, and we have caseworkers, and some other auxiliary people, right, who
Yeah.
are involved. The worker is such a unique position because they reach every other member of the foster care community, but they're
Mm-hmm.
often unseen. They're not supported. No one's
Mm,
really thinking of them. It's a very hidden, thankless job. For
mm,
us, we really want to see the church come alongside these workers, support them, because we believe by supporting them, more children and families will be supported.
yeah.
We know that worker turnover is only about 2.5 years on average. And every time a worker leaves, kids are impacted.
2.5 years
Two and a
on
half years.
average.
And that's on average. So that means there's a lot of times that's much less.
Yeah.
And we know it's a very stress filled, highly emotional, lots of trauma around you kind of a role.
Right.
And so our vision is that every foster care worker will be supported by the church
Yep.
as the church faithfully reflects the redemptive love of Christ.
Yeah.
We really want to just help the church serve their neighbors in foster care in a way that maybe they don't quite know how to yet. We teach volunteer leaders in communities. We call them advocates,
Mm-hmm.
and they really get to know the agency, get to know the workers, find out what the needs are, and then they advocate on their behalf to the church. And they get to know the church, starting often with their own local church.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the church wants to get engaged, but they don't know how. So they guide the church towards opportunities.
Got it.
So it can be something as simple as this. So we had an advocate share a story with us where their church reached out to her to say, hey, we would love to support TFI, do something with TFI
Mm-hmm.
for VBS. Not long after, the agency reached out to her also and said, hey, we need some birthday bags for kids in care. Is
Yeah.
there anyone you know that could provide these? So the advocate is really this person that sits in the gap between church and agency. And so she said, absolutely. So she approached the church. They were
Mm-hmm.
excited about the idea. They created 50 birthday bags for kids in foster care in
Wow.
their community. They were able to pray over those bags, write notes to children and teens who had received those bags, and then deliver those bags to the agency. And the workers were just so absolutely grateful to get those bags. But not only that, then they got the joy of providing these bags to the children and families who would receive them.
Wow. Wow.
So it's just this beautiful way to say we need each other.
Yeah.
We love to think about, we're in the business of reconciling communities, reconciling church and agency, church and state,
Yep.
for the sake of the children.
Yeah.
Because when you care for the worker, you care for the child.
That's beautiful.
So
And
that's what we want to see.
and so if you were to look ahead 5 years from now, how would you express the impact?
Mm-hmm.
If you can, quantitatively, that you want to see? Is it
Sure.
is it by number of kids, number of communities, number of churches involved? How do you think about it?
I think about it a few different ways, and I'll tell you, we actually have a goal right now where we're pursuing 150 communities
Oof.
that are reconciled, which is churches and agencies are partnering together on behalf
Yeah.
of the kids.
Yeah.
By 2028, we want to see 150 communities reconciled. We're
Wow.
in about 50 right now. We want to see 450 churches mobilized. We want to see God's people sharing their lives and their resources with the agency and with these kids. We want to see the church growing in dependence on Jesus as they engage with their neighbors, because we know that will happen. We also want to see thousands. We have a goal of seeing 40,000 children served more effectively as their caseworkers are supported by the church. So these are the things that we're shooting for. There's other things we're looking for, but essentially we want to see God's people together, come together on behalf of kids. The agency, the government has a very important role to play, but they shouldn't be doing it alone. They don't want to do it alone.
Yeah.
We can do it together. We need to do it together as neighbors for the sake of children.
What I love about it, well, there's a few things I love about it. One, I mean, that's an awe-inspiring goal. 40,000 children touch 150 communities, 450 churches involved. The second thing is much more practical and tactical, which is I can see the agency sitting on one side of the street and the church sitting on the other side of the street, both
Yeah.
lovingly looking at each other, but not sure what to do, like
Totally.
waving out the window. Hey, I would love to work with you someday, right?
Yes.
And we know government agencies are overtaxed and underpaid,
Yep.
not
Yep.
unlike teachers as a primary
Yep.
example. And we
Yep.
know churches are, what's what I'm looking for? Have more demand than supply, and
Yep.
often don't know what they don't know in terms of how to get
Yes.
started on things. So I think in the logbooks of most churches, you've looked at their quote unquote to-do list of things wanting to do. It's
Yeah.
long.
Totally.
But are
Yes.
there
The
enough people to
desire
help
is
do
there.
it, right? The desire is there,
Yes.
right? And so you step in, from what I'm hearing, and say, hey, I see those loving eyes. Hey, I see those loving eyes. Here is, let me match make, and here's how it could
Totally.
work,
It's
right?
exactly right. It's
Yeah.
exactly right. We kind of talk about our strategies in 3 different ways. We have awareness,
Mm.
encouragement, and advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to generally just make more people aware of the need for caseworker support, like
Mm.
help people even see that this is a need.
Yeah.
We want to encourage the church to depend on Jesus as they serve their neighbors in foster care. And we want to promote more advocacy, which means we're guiding churches to effectively support caseworkers in their community through
Yeah.
these volunteer leaders.
Let me go back to that second one. You said, when you say you want the church to depend more on Jesus as they do this,
Mm-hmm.
give me a little more on that. What
Yeah.
made that one pop as an essential principle in
Mm-hmm.
this work?
Well, we really believe the church needs the foster care community as much as the foster care community needs the church. It is not we're up here reaching down to serve.
Come
It is we need you and you need us. We just give each other different things.
Yeah.
But I know for personal, my life has been transformed because of walking with my neighbors, whether they be my own children who've come to me from another country, whether they be young adults that we've cared for in our home, whether they be in birth parents who we've walked with and loved. It has not been easy. It has changed my life, though, because it has made me recognize that I am not the hero.
Yeah.
I am not the savior. I am not enough, but God is.
Yeah.
And it's made me want to worship him and more and drawn me closer to him. And that's my heart for the church.
That's good. That's so good. That is in and of itself a quote. The church needs those in foster care as much as they need the church.
Totally.
And you know, when you say that, the image I saw in my mind was almost like puzzle pieces coming together.
Yes.
Right? But one doesn't realize it is incomplete without that other puzzle piece.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. What when a church wants to get involved, from the time they give you a call and say, hey, Jami, we saw you talk about this. We see the 50 communities you're impacting. We want to do it, but we're a little apprehensive. Walk us through what the process will look like.
Absolutely. So number one, I really have a heart, and we do at TFI, for the local church and particularly the pastor, the church leaders who are deeply passionate, doing their best to serve their people, to teach the word of God. They want their people to experience God more. And yet they are burdened. They don't have time to do more, right? And so we are not here to add any burden onto the pastor or the church leader. What we are asking of the pastor or church leader, though, is to identify someone in their church who could be a connector between the two, who they say, this is a person who has integrity. This is a person who's humble. This is a person who I would trust to engage, to serve in this way. But then we really do the rest for them. So we train that person. We do it through cohorts. So we will have 3 different times a year that people can actually apply. They can learn throughout. They can sign up to receive applications all the other times. But there's only 3 different times a year that we actually bring in new communities, new advocates. But then we train them for 3 months with the other people in their cohort. So they're already getting to know each other. Then we connect them with one of our coaches. So they are getting ongoing coaching throughout their entire experience with TFI. Then we provide resources for them. Sometimes that might just be creating banners and things that can help them share the need with their church. Some churches we work with are very small, so they don't have a creative staff.
Gotcha.
So we can help them with that. Some are large and they don't need that help, so that's great. We provide them with intentional community with each other. So one of the favorite things we do is invite them to come to a retreat that we host every year where we get to meet together in person. Otherwise, we're always talking virtually. So we are here to really equip that lay leader, that advocate, so that then they can go out and make those connections.
Yes.
All with the blessing of the pastor, but without putting burden on the pastor.
Yeah, that's good.
And everything we do for the church is for free. So our focus and everything we do for our advocates, we want to serve. One of our core values is growth through service.
Yeah.
And so we don't charge the church to engage with us. We deeply desire to see the church engaged. And so we're going to just do what we can to get them there.
And are you government funded?
No.
You're not. So you do your own fundraising activities, et cetera, to support your nonprofit. And so I just want to say this to the agencies, folks who may be listening. You may know someone working in the agency, and plenty of leaders here, and plenty of vocational leaders as well. You're in the C-suite, whatever the case may be. Think about the value of an intermediary in any deal you have done. Someone who gets out and for you on your behalf and makes the process easier. Think about the efficiency, the effectiveness, the efficacy even, and think about somebody doing that for free. And so I just want to encourage you to use the resource, the Forgotten Initiative. You can go to the forgotteninitiative.org. But we're not done talking with Jami, but I just want to encourage you to go there now while you're listening. Check it out. So Jami, let me ask you this. What's been some of the biggest learnings for you in this work?
You know, I got into this work I didn't plan to start an organization. I saw a need in my community. I started meeting it and I started blogging about it, and people started following along and saying, hey, that need is in my community too. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And so I experienced a ton of insecurity in leadership as God started to bring this team around me, and he started to call me into more and more responsibility. And I experienced a lot of lack of confidence, a lot of insecurity. And I think that something the Lord has taught me so much is, I'll explain it this way. When we first adopted our son, he came home. I thought I would just feel overwhelming feelings of love for him immediately and just feel like he's mine and has always been mine. And I didn't.
Yeah.
I actually felt like I was babysitting, and I hated that feeling. It bothered me.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my husband, what percentage are you bonded to him? Like, do you think we're like 99%? Like, I couldn't imagine. I just felt terrible. I felt guilty. And the Lord spoke to my heart and just said, it doesn't matter what percentage you feel bonded. You're 100% committed to him. And so that gave me peace. And I feel like God has done a similar thing for me in my leadership journey. He says, you don't need to, it's okay if you feel insecure. That's human. That's normal. It's okay if you don't feel total confidence all the time. That's actually healthy. In your weakness is my strength. But I feel like God has said to me, but what you can lean into is you lead with integrity, you lead with humility, you lead with conviction. And those are three things that by the grace of God, I can lean into. It doesn't matter how I feel in the moment. Feelings come and go. And I think that's my biggest learning as God has continued to say, I've created you to uniquely do this. You can't do it all alone. One, you need me, but you need people. And he's brought me an incredible team. But lean into the gifts I've given you and go forth.
That's good. That's good. What, well, I think I know the answer to this question. I was going to say, what does the future hold? But it sounds like 150 communities, 450 churches, and 40,000 children served. How about the more immediate future? What does it look like the next 6-12 months for you?
Yeah. We're praying that over the course of the next year, we will have 65 advocates in our program, which would be 65 communities.
Yes.
And so that would increase. I don't have those larger numbers tallied out, but that's essentially where we've been. I'll tell you, last year we had 57 advocates. We had 277 churches that were supporting 82 agencies, which meant over 2,700 workers had an advocate who was ready and willing to answer their call for help as these workers served 14,000 children.
That's awesome.
So we're multiplying that out with the goal, holding our hands open loosely, knowing that it's God who does the work.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be faithful, but that's our dream.
Awesome. Air horn. That's what's for air horn. 14,000 children served. Come on. Hey, as we close, I believe there are always people who are listening that are sometimes struggling to walk into their passion and purpose. If you could give them a point of advice of how you do that, how you take those initial steps, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, I have 3 things. First, abide with Jesus. That is the ultimate, is be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
I have learned over the years, as I've grown to know my Lord more, the greatest thing I can do is depend more on him.
Yes.
And he meets me every morning. It's my favorite time of day to spend with him. But abide, rest, be still. Like anyone with passion, we wear a lot of burden on our shoulders. We think we got to do it all and it depends on us, and it just doesn't.
Yeah, that's so good.
And we just need to release and trust and open our hands to him. That's my first thing. Abide and just ask the Lord, is what I'm excited about right now what you want me to be excited about? Change my desires if they're not right. Fuel my desires if they are right. The second thing I'd say is surround yourself with community. Who are the people in your life that are willing to speak the truth to you? The people that know you, that you're not paying necessarily to do a job, but the people that know you and are not afraid to hurt your feelings in love if they need to, who are not afraid to speak the truth, because man, we need more people of integrity. But so many times we have blind spots, right? And so we need good people around us. God has just blessed me with incredible people, a multitude of counselors. He says there's safety.
Yes.
And then the third thing I would do is, if you've done that and you're feeling that passion and you have those people, you go for it. Get out there, just do the next thing. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna start and you're gonna have to turn and pivot. I mean, this whole journey, it's all about learning and growing. It's not about doing it perfectly. That won't happen. That would be my encouragement.
Amen to that. If people want to follow with you, Jami, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I mean, you can get a hold of us and me through my website, theforgotteninitiative.org. I'm on Instagram, Jami Kaeb, not super active at the moment. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Jami Kaeb, but also just follow along at The Forgotten Initiative.
Hey, CoreLink Solution family, you heard it here. I implore you to check this information out. Again, go to the forgotteninitiative.org and check out Jami Kaeb and the wonderful work she's doing. Jami, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.